this video, I'm going to show you how to install a trailer hitch and tow package on a 2024 Subaru Forester Wilderness. The dealer wanted $500 Canadian for the hardware and then $700 for installation, which is just crazy. And definitely go with the Subaru hitch. It definitely sits much higher than trailer hitches sold by third-party vendors. Doesn't affect the departure angle at all. And if you're doing the installation yourself, completely affordable. And there's really nothing to it. When you pick it up from the Subaru dealer, it comes in a box like that, and it's really just 3 metal pieces. It comes with the wiring harness for the tow package, all the bolts and hardware, and a receiver cap. What it doesn't come with is any instructions, but I'll put the link down below so you can download them and print them yourself. And here's everything you're going to need to do the job. Hopefully you already own some of these or can borrow from a friend, but even if you had to go and buy every single one of these tools, you're still going to be saving hundreds of dollars compared to paying the dealer to do it for you. First tools you'll see is a Phillips head screwdriver and some plastic trim removal tools. You can get away with just flathead screwdrivers, but these guys, they made the job so much easier. You'll see later on in the video. This whole kit cost me $30 on Amazon. I'll link it in the description. And this one specifically made popping off the clips so easy. Next up is a ratchet. This is a 3/8 inch ratchet and a whole bunch of sockets. There's a 10mm socket, and that's to remove the bolts that are connecting the taillights. Then there's a 12mm socket, and that's for a trim piece along the bottom of the trunk. Then it's a 14mm socket, and that's for the original bumper when you remove that. And the last, it's a 17mm socket, and that's to install the new M12 bolts that are going to connect your actual trailer hitch to the frame of the car. In addition to the 14mm socket, you're also going to need a 14mm wrench, and they're going to work in tandem to get the muffler off at the flange. You also need a socket extender. Buy a 10-inch. A few of these bolts we're removing will require different depths. You'll see from the video, but buying this one 10-inch will get you all the way through the job. I also have here a breaker bar because depending on the length of your ratchet, mine is small. These 14mm bolts that connect the original bumper, they're on there from the assembly line, so they're on there pretty tight, and I didn't have enough leverage with this short bar, so the breaker bar got them undone like butter. If you have a longer ratchet, you might be able to get away with it, but keep in mind you may come to a point where a breaker bar will come in handy. And then a torque wrench. They're not expensive, and you'll need this to torque down the bolts of the new trailer hitch to the correct foot-pounds. And if, like me, you're using a 3/8 inch socket, but your breaker bar and or torque wrench are a 1/2 inch, then you'll need this adapter that'll convert your big 1/2 inch breaker bar to the smaller 3/8 inch sockets. And then finally is a Dremel, and that's to trim out your rear bumper. And the bit that worked really well for me, you'll see later on in the video, is the Dremel brand 561 multi-purpose cutting bit. Cut through the plastic like butter, and I had a lot of control over it. And once that's cut, a file. And that's to file down all the plastic burrs that'll be left over after you cut the plastic bumper. First step is to remove everything from the trunk. Most of it just lifts right out, and then these two side foam pieces have 2 plastic clips, which you can use this clip removal tool or a flathead screwdriver to pop them out. Next is to remove this inside plastic trim piece. The instructions say there's 4 plastic clips, but at least on the Wilderness, it's these 12mm nuts, one on either side. Unscrew those, and this trim piece will come right out. There's 2 plastic clips that are built into this trim piece underneath, and you just need to force them out like so. Actually, 4 it sounds like. Let's see what we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these clips on either side of the trim piece that are also snapped into place. Next thing to do is remove the plastic trim from the inside of the taillights, and there's 2 plastic clips with a Phillips head inside. With the Phillips head screwdriver, you're going to slowly unscrew this little screw from inside the plastic clip, and once it's out, this whole plastic clip will be able to pull out from the housing. Once the clips are removed, the piece will be loose and wiggling, but you're going to have a hard time getting it out because it's seated inside here along the edge of the tail light. And the only easy way to do that is with some kind of pry tool, just to get under from the bottom and slide your way up, right up to the top. Wiggle as you go, and then you should hear a pop. There's a little clip right up in here that'll come out as you run up towards it with a pry tool, and then just shimmy it out. Now with the trim piece removed, you'll have access to the 2 bolts that are keeping the taillight in place. It's a Phillips head screwdriver or 10mm socket, and we'll be removing the taillight. And why? Well, unfortunately, because the taillight has to be removed in order to get the bumper off. And this is where you're going to need the 10mm deep socket, because this bolt here is recessed, and you'll need that for your ratchet to clear. Or if you have an extender like I have, I used a 4-inch extender with a regular size socket. I tried to use just a Phillips head screwdriver and go that route, but they were on pretty tight. So to break them free, you will need to use the ratchet. Now that the 2 bolts are removed, just have to take the taillight and pull it out. and wiring harness. Push down on the tab and pull that out, and your taillight is free and clear. Now that you got the taillights off, it's time to remove the bumper, and that's just a set of plastic clips to remove. We're going to start on the outsides and the wheel wells and work our way to the center. There's not too many. Starting in the wheel well, you'll see a whole bunch of plastic clips, but you're only going to concern yourself with one small clip up here by the seam. Then you're going to get underneath, and there'll be a large clip right by the tire, a second one a little further down, and a third and a fourth right here, and then a fifth towards the center. On the passenger side, there's even less. You got that same small one up near the seam. Then you get under the car, and there's one right close to the tire, a second one further down. You're going to ignore these two by the tailpipe because they're not securing the bumper to the vehicle. They're just keeping two parts of the bumper together. The third and last one for the passenger side is right down there towards the center of the vehicle. And the clips for these, both the big and the small, are the same. With a flathead screwdriver, you can pop out the center portion and then get underneath the larger flange and pop the whole thing right out. Larger one looks similar, but actually has some grooves to insert a flathead screwdriver. Now, it did require a little bit of prying with the screwdriver, and this tool just popped them out in seconds. So you can get away with a flathead, but you'll be working at it for a little bit. This was in the same kit as this, and it was $30 Canadian on Amazon. It comes with a whole bunch of pry tools for your dashboard and underneath the car. I highly recommend investing in that. Now, with all those clips removed, it's just a matter of going around and pulling the bumper away from the vehicle. There's some plastic clip system in place, but that snaps out pretty easily. Just work your way around. Repeat the same thing on both sides. Work your way to the center. And then when you get to the center, you're just going to be pulling straight out from the vehicle. Don't be afraid. Just give it some good force. And then go again from the other side, working your way to the center. And voila, the bumper comes right off. Now be careful because you've got some wire connections on the driver's side for your backup sensors. Gently rest it on the ground, and it's just one connection right in there. And then once you get that connection detached, bumper is very light, just place it out of the way. And just to save yourself some time while you're trying to hold that bumper up and detach the harness at the same time, it's the part that's connected to the bumper that you're going to manipulate, and it's at the very end here. You push down on this tab, which lifts up the end portion. What that's doing is pinching down on this little piece. So on the bumper portion, push down. On the end of the tab, it lifts up just enough to clear off this, and the thing slides right out. With the bumper cover off, now we're going to be removing the actual bumper beam. The new hitch is going to replace this and become the actual bumper beam. For that, that's where the 14 millimeter socket with the extension comes into play, because you can see there's one in through that hole, and then this hole inside there is one more, and underneath you got one more here, a little notch for your extension to pass through. But again, you'll need at least a 6-inch extension, and depending on the length of your ratchet, like with this small one here, I just couldn't get it to budge. They're on there pretty good from the assembly line, so you might have to grab a long breaker bar, something longer than this, to give you a little bit more lever action. And with this, came off like butter. So using the long breaker bar, get it onto the bolt, and based on the sound this is going to make, you'll be able to tell how tight they are on there. There, that broke free. You can continue unscrewing them with that big breaker bar, but a little awkward. So once they're broken free, you can finish it off with the small ratchet. Leave just one of the 3 bolts in there, just threaded a couple of rotations so that this side of the bumper stays up while you remove the 3 here. Once you get all 3 bolts out from this side, you can hold it from the middle, unscrew that last one you left in place on the opposite side, and then the bumper will come off without falling to the ground. Before moving on to installing the hitch, we're going to hit this exposed metal area with some Tremclad or Rust-Oleum rust-proof paint, because that's exposed metal. The bumper was installed before the vehicle frame got painted in the factory. So to prevent rust, best practice to do that. Hopefully things are going smoothly for you at home, starting to feel confident. And listen, if you do get your trailer hitch installed and this video helped at all, please leave me a comment and let me know. I love reading them, and I always make sure to reply. The likes and the comments mean a lot, and they help a lot too.
One last thing before installing the hitch, removing the muffler.
To get the muffler disconnected at the flange, you're going to use both the 14mm ratchet and 14mm wrench in tandem. Do that for both sides, and you'll see there's a metal gasket in between the two flanges. You can discard that. You always got to use a new one when reinstalling a muffler, and the trailer hardware kit came with a new one. It also came with 2 new nuts, so you can discard the old ones if they're a bit rusted, but what it didn't come with was the bolts, so make sure you hold on to these bolts. With the muffler disconnected from the flange, it's still hanging here by 2 hangers. There's one towards the rear of the vehicle right here, see the rubber hanger, and then up on the other side there's one right in here more towards the front of the vehicle. Easier to start with the one that's closer to the rear of the vehicle. Getting the muffler off of these rubber hangers may be the hardest part of the whole job. A little trick is to get some dish soap and lather both the rubber part and metal rod part. Should have an easier time sliding it off. As you can see, the head is a bit more bulged and it's got to go through a tight rubber hole. You can even use pliers to get one end onto the metal rod and one onto the gasket and then push them both together. Perfect. The bulge went right through the hole with the pliers. Now by hand you can get the rest off. Wiggle, 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 little wiggling action, and it's off. Now that we got the first hanger undone, muffler's only connected from the last hanger, which is a little different and easier. Zoom in. This one doesn't have a bulge on the end, so we don't need to worry about dish soap. It's longer, but it'll slide right through the rubber hanger. The only tricky part about this one is it's a long rod that has to go through the metal hanger. In order to clear everything here, the muffler needs to be lifted at the rear at a downward angle. Hopefully that's a good camera angle. We're gonna slide the muffler down out of the rubber hanger. What I'm doing is my left hand is holding the rubber hanger and pushing it away, and my other hand is at the back side of the muffler, keeping it up high at a downward angle and pushing down on the muffler so it slides off of that hanger. Little wiggle action also helps. Now I got a knee underneath to make sure it doesn't fall on me. Not quite. Awkward angle, guys. I hope you saw enough of that to know as long as you lube up the front one, it'll come off easy. And then this one is all about just angles to slide it off of that second hanger. With the muffler off and out of the way, we've got access to the heat shield, which needs to come off. And there's 4, either Phillips or you can use a 10mm socket. To make things go quicker, I'm going to use a 10mm socket on the end of my drill. And the reason why we had to go through all that trouble of getting the muffler and heat shield out of the way is because we need to access the underside of the frame here. We're going to be removing these rubber grommets and screwing up through the underneath into the hitch assembly. And the grommets we're going to remove out of these 3 are just the first 2 on the underneath of the frame rail and both up on the side. Those 4 holes are going to correspond to the holes that are part of the hitch bracket that'll insert inside of this frame rail. For the driver's side, you'll have this piece of plastic, not really in the way, but again, it's the first 2 grommets, not this third one, that you're going to pull. And you'll have to get out from underneath the car and access the side grommets from the exterior. And there's 1 and 2. Now it's time to install these support brackets into the vehicle frame rail, and there is a left and a right, and they just slide into the vehicle frame rail all the way until they bottom out. Oh, hey, thanks, man. You too. Amazon delivery. All the holes in the support bracket align with the holes in the frame rail, and then we're going to drive these M12 bolts with the large washers inside all of them, but not tighten. Just get them in there until they're a little loose and there's some play in the support bracket. Same for the other side, because we need to install the trailer hitch crossbar while these have some play. And once everything's nicely connected, we're going to tighten them down and torque them to spec with the torque wrench. Again, to make things go quicker, I put the 17mm socket on the end of my drill to get them in. Once all 4 bolts are in on both sides, but not tightened, you'll still be able to wiggle both support brackets. Take crossbar assembly and just lower it into place. And then with the remaining 6 M12 bolts, we're going to drive 2 into each side and 1 underneath. Again, do not tighten, just stop short of snug. Once everything's in place, we're going to torque it all down. Now with that same 17mm socket now attached to the torque wrench, we're going to fasten everything down at 78 foot-pounds or 105 Newton meters in a very specific order. Heads up guys, you're going to need at least an 8-inch extension bar attached to your torque wrench to get to these bolts underneath. I've got a 10-inch and I've got some room to spare. One more thing to take off for torquing down, you're able to torque down the underneath, but when it comes time to torque down the bolts on the side up there, this plastic thing's in the way. It looks like two 10mm or Phillips head, and on the side the wheel well, both clips at the back, and there's still something in behind there. Can't make out why, but it won't release, but it doesn't matter. With this hanging, you got more than enough room now for the torque wrench to do its job. Now that all the bolts are torqued down, the hitch is officially installed. It's time to move on to the wiring harness. To get the wiring harness installed, you're just going to reach back here and find the connector. It's taped up with a little bit of pink tape. Just cut it free. Once that's cut free, you're going to mate it with the corresponding connection on the wiring harness, and then wrap the connection with the adhesive foam tape that the hardware package came with. Should look like that when you're done. Then pull the rubber grommet out from the trunk, and you're going to pass the 4-pin wiring connector down through the hole. Get that down in there and push through up until the pre-installed grommet on the wiring harness, and then seat that grommet into the hole. Once that's done, you're left with a decent length here that has the fuse and the controller module attached. Both have double-sided adhesive on the back, and you're just going to follow the instructions with the diagram as to how to curve and place all of those components for it to be nice and out of the way for your spare tire to still fit nicely. To be honest, this diagram is kind of crap, so hard to reference for where to run everything. If you want to copy what I did, the spare tire fits perfect this way. I have it following this recessed channel and then goes right to the back, does a bit of a dog leg just to use up the extra wiring so I can have the control module and fuse one after the other right on the upright portion of the wheel well, and then everything else is just tucked under here. Now to finish up on the wiring harness down below, you take the plastic clamshell, you place the connector inside, and you clamp that closed, and then you run the 2 long screws that it came with right through the clamshell and into the metal bracket on the trailer hitch. So then your connector pin is facing downward, no chance of water running into it, and you got a cover for it as well. This is what it looks like once it's installed. I won't lie, this one was easy, but back there it was a little challenging with my chubby fingers to get the nut threaded onto the screw, but a little bit of patience, it got done. And you can see here what I did with the wiring. I have it running up and looping around, so it's nice and taut all the way to the entry point into the trunk. I put a zip tie up around here, keep it nice and high, keep this loop formed, and then I put another zip tie here to prevent the wiring from sliding outward. Now the last thing to do is trim out the bumper cover and get it reinstalled in the car. And for such a scary task, they just give you one small paragraph called modifying your rear bumper. And basically what they're asking you to do is cut out a hole in your bumper using one of these 3 templates. You got one for the Touring and Sport model, Standard and Limited, and then the Wilderness. Your printer should print them out fine, but just double check. They give you a scale along the side, 8 inches. Just make sure that your scale measures 1 inch, or else this whole thing is going to be off and you'll be left with the wrong size hole on your bumper. The templates are very different between models, so hopefully that means it won't be hard to line up, because the picture in the instructions is not specific to any vehicle at all. But on the bumper itself, there's a lot of different curves and angles, and on the actual template specific to the model, mine is the Wilderness, it'll tell you that these 3 tabs should be lined up with the curved portion of the bumper, and it looks like they're nestled in there nicely. And if that's happening up there, it should be perfectly centered between these 2 portions of plastic that kind of bubble up on either side. We're definitely not going to cut around these 3 tabs. They're not part of the actual cut line. They're just there to orientate the template. The cut line goes right past them in a straight line. They're not really specific on what to use for cutting the bumper. You can see here it says cutting tool. To me that looks like a Dremel, a file to smooth out any plastic burrs left when cutting, and then a reamer. Not sure what the reamer would be for. I have this old Dremel with a bunch of bits. They don't really say which one to use. I picked up this Dremel brand bit number 561. I think that'll do the job nicely. I didn't even tape it down. I just held it into place, and with a marker on the black plastic, it's showing pretty decent. I'm trying to appear brave, but I'm nervous to cut into my bumper. But let's not forget, we've got this rubber trim piece that's going to fit all around the cut line and hide any imperfections we make. I tested on a piece closer to the middle that's going to get cut out anyways, just to see if this drill bit's working. And I definitely recommend, it seems like it's going to do the trick, the 561 bit by Dremel. Success. This is what it looks like after cutting. Don't be scared about these plastic burrs. You can file them all down. If you don't get close enough to the line, like right here, you can just file that portion down as well and make it perfect. Just don't cut past the line. Like, boom, what happened right here? I'll tell you why that happened so you don't make that same mistake. Hopefully the rubber trim will cover it. It's because the bumper was angled this way, which was perfect for cutting either side. But down around here, my drill bit bottomed out with the ground and it sent it running wild rogue right into the edge here. So once you get the sides done, which is a great angle for doing those, rock your bumper a quarter turn. So now the bottom portion is well off the ground and it's just a straight line here. So even if the angle's not optimal, you can easily cut that straight line. With a metal file like this, you'll be able to get it all smooth. Trim piece is installed, and check this out. That's where that mistake I made was. Such a tiny little hole now. That's how much this trim piece covers. And that was like the worst possible mistake you can do. It was horrible. So I'm sure you guys won't do as bad as me. And you can have faith that the trim piece will bail you out of any imperfections. And that's exactly why I love making these YouTube videos. To show you how to do something, but more importantly, show you not what to do so you can learn from my mistakes. And if you appreciate that, please leave the video a like. It means a lot and it helps a lot too. Now to get the bumper cover back on, it's literally just the reverse order of what we did to take it off, so I won't show you that. Here's the finished product after installation. Looks pretty good. Even with my little boo-boo there, you can tell barely noticeable with the trim. So don't be afraid to cut yourself.